Taming the High Cost of College, Episode 52.
You have kids, they grow up, and before you know it, it's time to plan for college.
Where do you start?
How much is it going to cost?
Will you qualify for financial aid?
Should you be looking into scholarships?
When will you be able to retire?
What about student loans?
The list of questions is never ending. The good news is, all the answers are right here. Welcome to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Here is your host, certified financial planner, Brad Baldridge.
Hello, and welcome to Taming the High Cost of College. I'm your host, Brad Baldridge. Today's episode, we've got a great interview with Ryan Gray. He's a physician and also a podcaster and expert on getting into and planning for medical college. So he's got a lot of great information. So if you have students that are thinking about becoming a doctor or other medical professions, physician assistant, dentist, those types of things, this is some great information on how the whole process works and things you might be doing starting in high school all the way through the college process and ultimately med school. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this interview. As always, we've got show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege/52, where we have all the links to Ryan's materials, etc. Here we go. All right, today we're sitting down with Ryan Gray. He is a physician and also the host of Medical School HQ podcast. Welcome, Ryan.
Brad, thanks for having me.
Before we jump into all things medical school, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to do what you do?
So I started back around high school. I was very interested in being a physical therapist, and that was due to a sports injury. I was a big baseball player and hurt my arm and went into rehab, and I loved what they were doing. And so I said, I want to be a physical therapist. And at that time, physical therapy was super hard to get into. And the physical therapist that I was shadowing said, if you're smart enough to get into PT school, you might as well be a doctor. And it was right around the same time that I was also dissecting a cat in anatomy class my senior year of high school, and I was hooked. I was the weirdo in the back of the class with power tools that I brought in from home. Just totally fascinated with how the body worked, and went to undergrad at University of Florida and medical school in New York, and I've been a practicing physician in the United States Air Force now for 5+ years.
All right. Well, great. So you've lived the medical school, and you also have a podcast. So can you tell us a little bit about that podcast? What do you talk about in that?
We created a website, medicalschoolhq.net, to put some real information out online instead of just other people's perspectives and their own rumors. And so we started the website, and after a little while, I realized I was having more fun interacting with the students that were emailing me or talking to me or whatever it may be. And I was a big podcast listener back then, and I said, let me start a podcast. And that was 135 weeks ago. We've released a podcast now every week for 135 weeks, discussing topics from what major you should do in undergrad, how to choose a medical school, what being a doctor is like, kind of anything and everything along the path to becoming a physician.
Great. So let's tap into some of that expertise. I guess to start with, if I'm a parent of a sophomore, junior, and we start getting that idea that, hey, maybe junior is going to grow up and want to be a doctor, but I know nothing about the whole thing. Where do you start?
I typically like to start by telling people they need to experience what being a physician is like. A lot of students and a lot of parents have the experience of medicine from being a patient or having a loved one as a patient. And while that gives you the initial experience of what medicine is like, it doesn't truly show you what being a physician is like, because it's totally different. And yes, there are TV shows like Grey's Anatomy and Scrubs and all of those, and those are nothing like what being a doctor is like either, unfortunately. And so the best place to start is to find a physician to shadow. Now, I talked about earlier how I was shadowing a physical therapist and actually was turned away from and kind of dissuaded from being a physical therapist. But that's what you have to do. You have to go and be a fly on the wall and follow a physician around and see what their day-to-day life is like. You'll understand quickly that it's not as glorious as maybe you think it is. There's a lot of administrative things, a lot of paperwork stuff, a lot of dealing with computers. And so that's really the first step, is finding a physician to shadow. And typically, the best place to find that person is your own physician. Either you're as a high school student, your pediatrician, or your parent's physician. That's the best place to start.
Okay, and is that common? I mean, would most physicians be open to that, or would they then refer you somewhere, or how does that work?
Physicians understand. I mean, we've all been through that stage where we understand what it's like to be a pre-med student, what it's like to be a high school student, trying to scratch that initial itch of trying to figure out if this is what we want life to be like. So they understand why you're coming to them and asking them to allow your son or your daughter to shadow them. The biggest issue that we run into as physicians and as office managers and as hospital administration is the privacy side of things. So there's this wonderful thing out there called HIPAA that prevents physicians or healthcare workers in general from giving out your personal healthcare information without your permission. And when it comes to student shadowing, there's a big gray area as to where we as shadowing students fall into. And I think it's a big hurdle that a bigger hurdle that they make it out to be. It's really not that big of a deal. There are online HIPAA courses that you can take to say, hey, look, I'm certified in HIPAA compliance. I understand how to maintain patient privacy. And that's usually something I recommend to all students, is spend the $20 or $30, whatever it is, get a HIPAA certificate. And then you can, when you're approaching these physicians to shadow, say, I would love to shadow you. I've already completed my HIPAA training, and show them your certificate. And then that removes one of their excuses for saying no. But to answer your original question, yes, it's very common to go and ask a physician to shadow. So they're not going to look at you sideways. What are you asking me?
And then typically, how much time would you spend at that? I mean, would it be a week? Would it be an afternoon?
Ideally, you want to spend a lot of quality time. So as a high school student, it's going to be not a ton of time. Obviously, as a high school student, you have a lot of other responsibilities. Even as a college student, when you're further on down the path and you're still shadowing, you still have a lot of other responsibilities. But ideally, you want to start building relationships with these physicians, because you may use them in the future for letters of recommendation. And so the quantity is important. Quality is important too, but the amount of time that you're able to spend with them, the more the better. And if they work in different settings, maybe sometimes they're in a clinic and sometimes they're in the hospital, or sometimes they're in the operating room, try to get exposure to all of those. Because again, this is your initial feeling out stage for determining whether or not you want to be a physician and understanding what day-to-day life is like. So the more that you can get that exposure, the better. An afternoon isn't going to cut it.
Okay. So this is maybe an afternoon a week for a few weeks, or whatever else you can, I guess, take what you can get, may be the right answer.
Yeah, and I would set up those expectations from the get-go. Let them know, hey, I would like to shadow you for an afternoon a week for the semester, or an afternoon a week for a year, whatever it may be. Let them tell you, no, that's too much. Because again, the more the better.
Okay. Now, I guess, what does a typical med student look like when they're in high school? I guess that me, as doing a lot of college planning and working with families, not to be too down, but I see a lot of students that probably don't have strong enough grades in high school. If they continue on the path that they've demonstrated in high school, the grades they get in college probably won't make it either. So you have any ideas as far as what it takes to make it all the way? And if it's realistic to put that on your list as a junior, if you're a A student, a B student, an ACT of this or that?
I think no matter where you are right now, you can become a physician. It's that understanding that you have to take your current situation, whether or not you're an A student or a C student, whether or not you're good at standardized testing or not, because there are a lot of tests on the way to becoming a physician. But it's understanding where you are starting now. Just like when you're using Google Maps on your phone to figure out where you're going, you have to put in a starting point. You have to put in your location, with the destination being medical school. And so once you know where you're at, figure out if you're a C student, why are you a C student? Is that because you just really haven't been interested in anything yet? But maybe now that medicine is kind of in your mind, maybe you'll be more excited to study the sciences or more excited to get better grades, whatever it may be. But I don't think I don't think, Brad, that you can look at a student right now as a junior or a sophomore in high school and go, "Ooh, yeah, you're not a strong enough student to be a pre-med at the next level to ultimately be a medical student." Because I'll tell you, I've coached a lot of medical students or pre-meds that have gotten into medical school that have started college with 2.5s or 2.2 GPAs and have just done terrible. And they're able to turn it around. And medical school admissions committees, they see that turnaround, they see the upward trend, they see that dedication, and they're comfortable with accepting students like that.
They are. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the pre-med as an option. Is pre-med a major at a lot of colleges, or do you choose a different major, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I think one of the first steps that if you're still in high school and you're dwindling down your list of what colleges to apply to, and you're out there looking for the pre-med major, you're not going to find many. The pre-med is a major at maybe a handful of undergrad institutions, but the majority of the time, you can major in whatever you want, whether that be English, whether that be writing, whether that be geography. It doesn't really matter what you major in. There are a core set of classes that are required by most medical schools, and you'll have to take those to get an acceptance to medical school. But besides that, major in whatever you want to major in. Major in whatever you think you'll like, because what you'll like will show a lot more on your grades, your overall GPA. It'll show a lot more when you are sitting there struggling with your science classes for medical school, and you're able to go back to maybe something that you're a little bit more passionate about, whether it's writing or English or whatever you're studying. Don't take chemistry just because you think that's the major you have to take to get into medical school, because if that's what you're doing, then you're going to suffer through it and you're not going to do very well.
Okay. So you mentioned some prerequisites to get into medical school. Can you give us some examples of what typical prerequisites are?
So this is one of the most frustrating things for me as an advisor for students, is that every medical school is a little bit different with what they require. But for the most part, you're gonna need an English class. You're gonna need basic chemistry, a year of basic chemistry, a year of basic biology, a year of physics. You're gonna need some organic chemistry, some biochemistry. And just recently, the MCAT, which is the test that you need to take to get into medical school, similar to the SAT or ACT that you need to get into undergrad, the MCAT has changed for this 2015 season, and the first time it's changed in like 20 years. And they've added psychology and sociology. And so now medical schools are requiring you to take those classes as well, because what we're finding is that the best physicians aren't necessarily physicians that have 4.0 GPAs and the best score on the MCAT. The best physicians are ones that have a little bit of psychology background, sociology background, are able to relate to patients a little bit more. Maybe they don't have the best GPA or the best MCAT score, but they understand life more in general. And so taking psychology and sociology are on that list as well. But for the students that are in high school now, a lot of these requirements may change. Curriculum is changing a lot in medicine. And so it's always recommended to just kind of keep an eye out on what's recommended for that year.
Right. So I guess from a planning and paying for undergrad, as a parent who might be writing those big checks, if you did take a completely unrelated major, let's say theater. So you're going to do a theater major and then go on to med school. There's a good chance if you're a theater major, you're not going to take many of the sciences and stuff prerequisites you just listed. So a theater major would have to add a lot of extra classes in order to qualify for med school, correct?
Yeah, but most majors will have some room for elective classes, and so your electives may just be the sciences instead of extra classes for theater.
Correct. And the point being, though, is if you plan ahead while you're an undergrad and take the right courses, you'll knock off some of your med school prereqs versus getting to your junior or senior year and say, now I'm looking at med school. Oh, look, I should have taken some physics. I should have taken some chemistry, some lab classes, and I didn't take a lot of this stuff. I need another year to prep for med school.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a good point, because when you take the MCAT, which typically is taken at the end of your junior year, the material that's on the MCAT, you're going to have to kind of know already and have taken those courses already. So you're starting kind of from day one, getting into the swing of things with your science courses along with whatever you're majoring in.
So if I don't choose, at a typical college, I know you don't offer pre-med. So you take either, as you mentioned, chemistry or sociology or biology or whatever it is you're interested in. But then I know a lot of colleges offer pre-med organizations or clubs of some sort. Can you tell me a little bit about those and what they're about? And are they important, or should you?
They're very important. And they're important because it allows you to surround yourself with other people that are going through the same torture that you're going through. and being a pre-med can be very torturous because there's so many requirements for the classes that you're taking. There are extracurricular, quote unquote, requirements. There's the shadowing and volunteering that you need to do to kind of prove to the admissions committees that being a physician is truly what you want to do. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on beyond getting good grades and preparing for the MCAT. There's a lot of other stuff going on. And when you're able to plug into a pre-med group, you're able to kind of surround yourself with others that are going through it, so you can commiserate with them or get support from them. The biggest thing that we're about at the medical school headquarters is collaboration and not competition. All of these other students that are in these pre-med clubs are not your competition. You are your only competition. Your grades, your MCAT score, your extracurricular activities. That's the only thing that you need to worry about. And so get plugged in early with the pre-med clubs, go to their monthly meetings and hear from the lecturers and start building those relationships and networking with them. It's very important. And leadership opportunities look great on medical school applications. So if you're able to kind of work your way up the chain and become president of your pre-med club and do some outstanding things with the pre-med club, then do that.
Okay. So I have a lot of parents in my office say things like, we're looking for that undergraduate college that will give us the opportunity to get into the best medical schools. How would you respond to that?
There isn't one. That's a very common question, definitely, is what undergraduate institution should I go to? And it's common at the next level, too, of what medical school do I need to get into to become a anesthesiologist or a dermatologist or an orthopedic surgeon. But ultimately, there isn't one undergrad institution that you need to send your kid to. If you look at an incoming medical school class and the undergraduate institutions that they've come from, you'll find that it is a huge list of a variety of schools, and there isn't a pattern at all of, oh, it's all Ivy League schools, or oh, it's all top top 10 schools, whatever trend you're looking for, whatever you're asking about. You need to go to a school that will make your son or your daughter great. You don't need to go to a great school. You just need to go to one that will make them great, whether it's location for weather, or location near or far from family, near or far from friends. If they have a big athletic program or a small athletic program. I know myself, I only applied to one undergrad institution. That was University of Florida. I was a diehard Gator since I moved to Florida at the age of, I think, 12 or 13. I knew that that's the school that I was going to. And so whatever it is for you, that's where you need to go. Don't look at a school just because you think it will propel you into medical school.
Okay. Yeah, great. So can you give us an idea of what it's like to actually apply? I know my wife works at a college where they have a physician assistant, and they get in the neighborhood of 700 or 800 applicants for 20 spots. And I know medical school is relatively competitive as well. Can you give us some statistics on that? Or
the last statistics off the top of my head, the acceptance rate for medical school is about 44%. But that number shouldn't be very scary, because when you kind of weed out some of the people that probably shouldn't be applying, and I mean like you have a 2.0 GPA, you have an 18 on the MCAT, which is the old MCAT scoring, very low MCAT scores, very low extracurriculars, minimum extracurriculars. Those people shouldn't be applying. And when you kind of weed those people out, the acceptance rate jumps up to about 60%, which is much better. But the admissions process is brutal. And the majority of people that fail in the admissions process fail because they're not prepared. And it's an open book test, so you should be very prepared. You understand way ahead of time what's required. The applications open up before you can submit them so that you have time to enter in all your information. You're going to need a personal statement. You're going to need all of your extracurricular activities. You're going to need letters of recommendation. You're going to need all your transcripts from every school that you've attended as a college student. And you need to have all that ready to go so you can apply very early. And I mean within the first month or so that the applications open. It costs a lot of money to apply, because once you submit those primary applications, the secondary applications start to come in. And typically the secondary applications come from everybody. They don't look at your GPA or your MCAT scores before they send you a secondary application, because it's a source of revenue for the medical schools. It's on average about $100 per school to apply for secondaries on top of what you just paid for the primary applications. And so the application season can cost several $1,000s once you add in some travel and interviewing and buying the nice suits to wear for your interviews and hotels and all of that stuff. But the interview process is long, and you should be very prepared for it.
all right. So again, as a parent, I'm kind of looking at this and saying, all right, well, if my son or daughter decides to go the medical school route, how much schooling is that, and what does it cost, and am I on the hook for it? Can you talk a little bit about the process and who pays and how it works at each stage?
If my mom or dad were able to pay for me to go through medical school, I think I'd be very happy. So you don't have to be on the hook for it, but it'd be very kind. The majority of students go through medical school with loans. I think it's upwards of 80 to 90% graduate with a large amount of loans, upwards of $200,000. But in total, once you finish your 4 years of undergrad, there are typically 4 years of medical school and then 3 to 7 years of residency, followed by what most people are doing now is fellowship, which is another 1 to 3 years, I think, for fellowships, depending on what you're doing. Medicine is becoming very subspecialized, and so fellowships help you get that subspecialty. But once you're done with your undergrad, and hopefully you've done well with undergrad loans and you were able to get scholarships for those and don't have undergrad loans, medical school, the majority of people out there go to Uncle Sam and get their loans and come out on the other side. Again, the average is about I think $180,000 for public 4-year medical school, and then private's a little bit more. But there are lots of repayment options. There are other services out there. I went to medical school on what's known as the Health Professions Scholarship Program through the Air Force. As soon as I had my acceptance letter in hand, I went to the Air Force and said, I want to join, and so you can pay for medical school. And they kindly gave me a scholarship offer, and I took it. And so I went through medical school, not only with everything paid for, but also a monthly stipend. And now, right now, they're offering, I think, a $20,000 signing bonus too, which is awesome. And all the branches offer that: the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army.
Right. And then you had a commitment of service when you were done?
Yep. So 4 years of active service, and then 4 years of what's known as individual ready reserves, which is basically you're not in active duty anymore. You're not required to do anything. You're just on a list in case World War III starts or something bad. And so I've done 5 years now. I'm actually on my way out of the active duty Air Force, but it was some of the best 5 years of my life. I've been able to fly an F-16. I've been to Iraq, Afghanistan, Germany, Spain, kind of all over. Done a lot of cool things that quote unquote normal physicians don't get to do. And I came out debt free.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things you mentioned was shadowing doctors and that kind of stuff. Does all that intangible stuff matter as far as your applications as well? It sounds like you might even have to put that on your apps. Is that true?
Oh yeah, it's hugely important. You need to have a shadowing experience, clinical experience. What I say is you need to be close enough to smell the patient. You can't just kind of have some ancillary job that a lot of students get, or volunteering opportunities. My first volunteering opportunity, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have good pre-med advising. I was placed in the information booth at the hospital, and I directed people to the elevators and to the gift shop. So the worst experience for me as a pre-med student, you need to have experiences where you're close to the patient, experiences where you're shadowing the physician, because in the end, what medical schools want to know is that you truly understand what life is like as a physician, because it's, like I said earlier, it's not as glorious as the TV shows make it out to be. It's an awesome job. It's a great career. But you just need to understand it firsthand. And so having that on your extracurriculars list is very important.
All right. And then what do you think the biggest mistakes that students make in their quest to become a doctor?
So as a high school student transitioning into college, the biggest mistake typically is trying to take on too much too fast. The majority of pre-med students, we kind of self-select ourselves. We're typically the type A student who does well in high school, and we continue that path in college. But what we don't understand is that college is very different than high school. You are taken from an environment typically where everything is kind of guided for you. You're given homework and study things to study on a schedule, and then you get to college and you're on your own. You're given a syllabus at the beginning of the semester, and you're told what you're supposed to know for the next test, which is going to be a month later. And it's your own schedule typically. Sometimes you don't have to go to class even, and so students will hit the ground running in college and take all of these classes and go join 3 pre-med clubs and some other stuff. And what we find out is that students will burn out very quickly. They'll do very poorly on their initial semester's grades because they've taken on too much. So the biggest piece of advice would be to learn how to be a student, a college student first. Take your courses, get that under your belt, learn the lay of the land. Once you've understood what college life is like from the student perspective, then the next semester, the next year, start adding in those extracurriculars. There's time to get those all in, even if you don't start out doing them right away. And then you don't have to worry about trying to fix a bad start to your undergrad career.
Great. That was some good advice. And let's wrap things up. We're running out of time. So can you give us a couple more quick tips that parents or students can use, whether it's something we've talked about or something new?
So I think that the biggest thing is just to understand, I think I talked a little bit about it before, about understanding where you are right now. And right now means today. It means tomorrow. It means at the end of this school year, at the beginning of the next school year. Do constant check-ins with yourself to see how things are going. Don't just put your head down and push full steam ahead. Because when you look up, you may be in a totally different spot than where you expected to be. So constantly check in with yourself to understand if you need to course correct along the way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Another piece of advice would be to always seek out the help and guidance of those around you. Again, we talk a lot about collaboration, not competition at the Medical School Headquarters podcast. And so don't be afraid that the classmate sitting next to you in chemistry class who is also gunning for a spot in medical school, don't be afraid that they're your competition. Ask for help. Seek out the guidance counselors, the pre-med or pre-health advisors at your university. Ask the questions now, because a big mistake is to think that you don't need to ask questions, and then when it comes time to apply, you realize that you're missing a lot of stuff for your applications. And then the last piece of advice is to understand that it is a long journey. It is a hard journey. But if you've done enough shadowing and you've gotten the clinical experience, enough clinical experience to understand that becoming a physician is truly what you want to be, then keep that goal in mind. Because when you have that goal in mind, and when you know the reason why you're doing it, then the day-to-day gets a little bit easier. When you're sitting there struggling for your chemistry test, your physics test, you're dying on the MCAT, understand, again, what that goal is, what that looks like when you're wearing your white coat and have that stethoscope around your neck. And it makes it a little bit easier.
All right. Well, great. Those are some good advice as well. All right. So if people want to learn more, can you tell us a little bit about how people can contact you and your podcast, et cetera?
Our website is medicalschoolhq.net. Our podcast you can find wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that's on your Android device, on iTunes, through Stitcher. We're everywhere and anywhere. Again, 135 episodes in as we're recording this right now. And I love Twitter. You can say hi to me on Twitter. I'm at medicalschoolhq. All
right. Thank you, Ryan. I'm sure we'll stay in contact. But that was a lot of great information, and hopefully people will go and check out your website and podcast as well.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. All right, that was a great interview with Ryan. Hopefully you got a lot out of it. Again, we have show notes available at tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/51. We also have a new guide to scholarships. It's called the Scholarship Guide for Busy Parents. And what this is a video series that's available to help parents understand scholarships and help you build a plan on how to pursue and actually win scholarships. Most families don't understand scholarships, how they work, and what might be appropriate for your family. So go ahead and go to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com/scholarships. Once you're there, you can sign up to receive via email 4 videos. And those 4 videos will walk you through what types of scholarships there are. There's private scholarships and there's institutional scholarships. It'll talk about the basics and then how to build a plan and how to build a team in order to more successfully pursue scholarships. So there's a lot of great information there. So go ahead and go there and sign up if you're interested. And please pass it along to your friends and other students that you know that might also be interested in scholarships. It's a free resource. There is no charge. Just sign up with your email. That's all we have for today. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Taming the High Cost of College podcast. Now it's time for you to take action. Head to tamingthehighcostofcollege.com for show notes, bonus content, and to leave feedback for Brad. The next step on your college journey starts now.
Brad Baldridge is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research and an investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Brad owns two companies, Baldrige Wealth Management and Baldrige College Solutions. The Baldrige companies are not affiliated with Cambridge Investment Research.